Hey, sorry about that discombobulated opening there, folks. I survived a hurricane. I don't know if y'all have been keeping up with the news, but Tropical Storm Whitney is kind of what everybody in Southern California has been talking about, and we braced for it. Did we brace for it? No, I mean, I don't know, but we got more water. Heidi's into that stuff. Heidi's like, we got to go to the store. We got to get this. We got to get that. We got to make sure that we have enough of this. I cut that number in half, and that's what I go out and get. So that'll probably be the death of me one day. But if anybody needs jugs of water, I got some. Somewhere in the shift, though, from like rainy to sunny and back and forth within 24 hours, I think I caught my own little snot goblin. Some kind of allergy or something happened with the shift in atmosphere that's going on here because of Tropical Storm Whitney. But I'm not going to go ahead and complain too much about getting rain here in Southern California, especially not in light of what happened in Maui. That's a true tragedy, and I welcome and urge all Geekscapists that have some money they can put towards charity to research some of those Maui charities and put their money towards the rescue efforts there. All right, let's get unserious here on Geekscape. I've got two good friends waiting here to talk about their new book, Snot Goblins. I have a PDF of it that I read, but I actually want the book. I want to have the physical book, and I'm excited to have it very soon because I like this gross out humor stuff from when I was a kid. Again, stuff like Garbage Pail Kids. Those are the ones I'm going to go to. Garbage Pail Kids, Toxic Avenger, Boglins. Remember Boglins? Those little things you put your hand in, and the little Boglins. And Madballs, of course. Those are like the ones where you like they're gross, and you'd like gross out the girls on the playground. In college, in I was about to say high school, and like middle school. It's like, but they got this new book, Snot Goblins, kind of what it is. And let me bring them on the show. Let's see if Robert's ready to come on. He ducked out of frame. All right, Rob, come back on Geekscape. There's Rob Kutner.
I'm back.
There's David DeGrand.
Hello.
You're back on Geekscape, Rob, and you've been busy, dude. This Snot Goblins book, it's a lot of work. I mean, not that David did a lot of the art and you wrote it, but like you've been busy. I caught up to you at Comic-Con. You came up to me after the panel like, hey, do you remember me? Of course I remember you, Rob. Are you kidding me? You were like, hey, remember you? I was on Geekscape. Come on.
I liked it. Well, you've had a lot of Geekscapes. I mean, I know whenever we're up to almost 700.
I don't do anything else. That's the thing, Rob. Like this is all I do. I don't leave this room. Mm-mm. And so when you come up
community service kind of thing,
yeah, please help me. I'm blinking.
Jail cell.
Help me, please. No, you came up and said, "Hey, do you remember Rob Kutner?" Of course, immediately. And then you handed me the bookmark for Snot Goblins, and we're like, "I have this book," and I was like, "Yeah, no, anything you want to promote on Geekscape, you have carte blanche right there." And you're hilarious. And Geekscape, he's written all sorts of hilarious stuff, Conan being one of them, all sorts of comics and cartoons. We all love the Teen Titans stuff. And here you are with your new book, Snot Goblins, and you brought David, your artist, along for the ride. Where did this idea come from, guys? Is this Rob's idea, David's idea? You guys, did y'all meet over the project, or like tell me about how this came about?
Well, first of all, David gets credit for the bookmark because it was his idea, and his designs caught your eye. Hopefully caught your stomach too.
Yeah, we're scattered all over the parking lots, and recycle bins and everywhere.
Well, I was going to say David and I met working on the reboot of Mad Magazine, where he cartoons and I drew, and we collabed together. But David really came up with the idea. And if you want to talk about that, David, because you brought it to me.
I think I might be having a little bit of a streaming issue with David. I don't know if the Geekscape is watching this or getting it, but David,
my question just caught him off guard and he froze.
It's fine. Hey, you sent him into the fucking multiverse with that question. David, if you want to reconnect, if you're even hearing this, if you want to reconnect and get back, let us know. I hope he's not on that damn infernal iPad. Like he told me, he's like, would the iPad be good for this? I said, no iPads on Geekscape. And he said, okay, cool.
What a lot of interesting backstory we brought
up. I know. I mean,
well, David, go ahead and talk until David.
While David's frozen in the negative zone. Why don't you talk?
He's in there with Zod right now.
Yeah. Why don't you talk about putting the book together, Rob?
This is cool. This has been a really power move. I think I've kicked on collaborating with this. Just you and me.
All you had to do was The virus to David, and the show's all yours.
Right. As David would have said, I'm going to do it in his voice now. As David would have said, he's a huge horror fanatic, and I know that David's in demand in sort of like the kids' world. He's done a bunch of kids' books and stuff like that, and he had people coming to him saying like, "Do you want to do like an anthology of like little, short kid stories?" And David's like, "Yeah," and I want to do like horror stories. And so we found very quickly when we worked at Mad Magazine that we're kind of on the same. We're in the same sophomoric level of sensibility. Like we have a good vibe together. David told almost the whole story.
Okay, yeah, man. I'm sorry, my freaking internet here in Texas.
It's when, yeah, I mean, listen, they have blackouts, and that's what you get when you're on your own electrical grid.
It's like,
so David,
freedom is what you get
when you're
a governor. Thanks, man.
when you're talking about being a horror fan. Right, David. That's what.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
And you think about like the idea of Snot Goblins, where it influences things like Ghoulies and Critters, and like those Munchies. Is there a Munchies influence in there?
And all those, of course, Gremlins and like all those little like '80s rubber monster, movies. And like you said at the beginning, like Boglins, Madballs, Garbage Pail Kids, all that stuff. It's like those are all cool gateways to like weird underground exploitation movies for kids that I was always drawn to.
I think you're right. Like something like Gremlins was the one that obviously got it.
You got the ball rolling.
From there, we're all into Critters as kids. If you have a parallel childhood to me, and then from Critters, you start getting to like the more like TNA type stuff. Like you're just like, oh, these are a little more risque. Where it's like Munchies. The cover of Munchies when you walk into the VHS store is like a little gremlin looking thing looking up a girl's skirt. Do I have this right?
Yeah, that's correct. And Ghoulies has like the one in the
coming out of the toilet. So that's like a gateway for sure.
I mean, how can I not want to watch that movie? Yeah.
No, this is all heavy influence. But then of course you use that stuff to like gross the girl out on the playground, like we said, or like tell your friends, like, oh, you push the envelope. Oh, I saw this movie. My dad let me see it. My uncle let me see it. I got to watch a bit of this gross movie. Those were all big influences for you, Dave?
Yeah. I remember watching like having cable. We got cable when I was like probably about 10 years old or so, and so I was constantly scanning through the movie channels, finding all those weird, crazy movies, and like probably shouldn't have been watching them.
Cinemax.
But and then like one of the thing that the movie scene that I remember, I think first warped me early on was the Large Marge scene in Pee-wee's Big Adventure. Because I remember it horrified me, but it was also funny. And so something like that just like, connected some synapses in my brain. It was like, oh, I want to create something that gives that reaction. So I think from that scene on, thank you to Paul Rubens, R.I.P.
For sure.
And then then I was big into like the Ren and Stimpy show is another huge gigantic influence as well. Just like because I know my dad hated it, and that made me love it even more. And I think it's a big part of Snot Goblins. We wanted parents to be like, put that effing book down, but the kids would be like, no, I'm going to read it, Dad.
And kids love this stuff. They love the gross, but I think books like Dogman, like little like bizarre, like just bizarre stuff. Dogman, Captain Underpants. I mean, somebody running around in their underpants, like that's big with kids, and he's got superpowers. Like the more absurd, I think, the better. Would you say that this is in that lane with that kind of book? Is that if a kid is into Snot Goblins, or if a kid is into those kind of books that are comic book-ish, maybe have a little bit of prose, but yours is very comic heavy. Do you think that that's like, if my kid is into, that kind of thing, this would be a good book for them come Christmas or come
both my
birthday.
kids. I have two kids, and they're both like into their Captain Underpants and Dogman. They're two completely different personalities. Couldn't be more different. But both of them went through a period of like being really into like both of those books, like and like multiple rereads, and I think it is kind of some of the you said absurd, but I think kind of what it is like it just rides up to the edge of like the inappropriate. Underpants is like, right. If we said Captain Rectum, I don't think that would fly. Or
you can't even say that on Geekscape. No, I'm kidding.
Oh my God, I've been
Where do you go?
Or even Dogman is like sounds kind of innocuous, but every single time you read it, it has the backstory where it's like literally like this dog's head is like surgically sewn into a guy. That's pretty effed up. I mean, for kids, it's like So it's right on that edge, I think. But I think more it is kind of that kind of like very kid centered humor. I think like a kid's perspective on things, which David and I are both man children, and we just
totally
channel it.
Yeah, and something that's funny is about when it comes to the bizarre and like when we did a promotion where we had kids submit like the grossest thing they could think of, and then I would illustrate it for 30 days up until the release of the book, and kids came up with most disturbing, insane things that I could ever come up with in a million lifetimes. So it's like,
what was the most disturbing?
The one for me was like it was a little, I think 9-year-old girl came up with like a series of like corpses vomiting up another corpse, and each corpse that's vomited out is more disgusting than the one before it.
Can I present? Can I present on this? Because I can show you. I have it.
I don't think you can, but if you want to put a like, you know what, email it to me. Email it to me, Rob, and
I think they're on the website.
Put a link in the private chat, and I'll bring it up, because Geekscapists who are watching this on video, you're going to want to see whatever the heck David is, and Rob are talking about. And so it was your idea, though, correct, David?
Mm-hmm.
The whole Snot Goblins thing. Like when did this start?
I think like I was just trying to like when Mad Magazine stopped publishing new material. It was around the same time where I was an artist and writer on the SpongeBob comic book, and they stopped publishing as well. So I was just trying to get something up and going. And, I do Rob's work. I loved it. I thought it was hilarious. And I think we met through somehow on Facebook or something. I don't remember now, but I was just like, man, I would love to, I was just like, hey, let's just throw out any crazy idea I got with him. I was like, let's just work on a book together. And I always kind of loved like anthology, kind of like, I always thought of this book as like a Tales from the Crypt, but for kids kind of anthology, like old EC comics combined with like, Captain Underpants or Diary of a Wimpy Kid or something like that. So
what I like about it is when Rob told it to me, and again, Rob, feel free to email that or put a link in the private chat, and I'll throw it up on the screen.
There's so much follow-up from this. My head's already
it's all good. When Rob told me about the book, I was like, okay, it's called Snot Goblins. Okay, that's the book. But then when I saw the book, when you guys sent me the preview, I was pretty amazed at the fact that it was exactly like you said. Like, it reminded me of like Shel Silverstein-ish, how he has like multiple stories within a book, because it's not technically called Snot Goblins. The book is Snot Goblins and Other Tasteless Tales. So if you get this for your kid, there are a bunch of different stories, the Snot Goblin story being one of them, which is it's
just front and center.
That what I love about it is it's equal parts Adult Swim and just like mid 70s, 60s, like zine comics. You know what I mean? Like it just reminds me of like R. Crumb type stuff or 8-Ball, but for kids. You know what I mean? And I'm sure that both R. Crumb and 8-Ball and that stuff, Dan Klaus, were influences for you guys. If not, correct me, but like this is what it reminds me of, is like a gateway drug to maybe some of those more alternative comic artists that were still pretty influential.
Oh, from your lips, from your lips, man.
Well, that was kind of the goal for me.
Yeah,
it's always like I would love just like the stuff that I was inspired by. I'd love for kids to look at this book and be like, man, what are some of the influences on this book, and what else can I go look up, and let this be a gateway to other cool underground weird stuff that
you also
weirdos like me are drawn to.
You notice also like this character Big Mouth that you've passed a couple of, like a crypt keeper, like the sort of storyteller. He swallows up sort of famous books that David and I like, and he chews them up and spits them out his own way. So you'll see the titles on there. So like the kids who are paying attention, they'll see like everything from like Nosferatu to like Snow Crash to like like all the kind of books that we've absorbed. Like the kids can, like, if they want to go further into it, they can say, oh, that's interesting. I'm gonna check that book out
as they get older.
Yeah.
Or now, and it just bends their brain.
No. Yeah. Right. Exactly. They're not ready for it yet.
So because you guys each came to it with your own stories, and you guys were kind of jamming, like, hey, what if there was a story that was a vampire? What if there was a story that was based on, like you said, Snow Crash? Like, who took the reins on each individual story, or at that point did it become actually both of y'all working as a cohesive like pair?
It seems like we just like spitballed. We each just spitballed like about 10 ideas to each other, and then we would filter out, which ones we thought would be funnier, just would fit into the book better. It's been like 3 years ago now since we first got this going, so it's hard to think back like so long ago now. But But yeah, I think we were just like,
this is like your pandemic project.
It
sort of started before it, but it lasted through it. I think
Right.
Somewhat
it did,
because
yeah. I remember
Unlike a lot, yeah.
That was,
I mean,
I was going to say unlike a lot of relationships.
I had a great example of like our collaboration at its most weird was David's idea for the second story was called The Vampire. So it was a vampire, and he didn't like biting people, so he would hit him with a mallet and then lick the blood off the mallet. And
like the act of sinking teeth into something was too gross.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
Just like the
So I don't know if David, but I probably not even told you this before, but so I thought that was hilarious, and we both liked that, and he drew up some art for it in the proposal that we sold. And then when I sat down to work with it, I was like, I'm not sure there's enough of a story here. I'm not sure there's like, it had to be like 42 pages, something like that, each one, or David. So, but the funny thing is, like, about influences, I was also reading, Will Eisner at the time. So Will Eisner has this great little, I guess, graphic novella called Dropsy Avenue, which is about like, I don't know if you know it, David, but it's like it's sort of like the American immigrant experience all takes place in this one apartment, I think in like the Bronx, like over generations.
Okay.
It's kind of amazing. And so that was just in my head, and I was like thinking about, well, what happens to the vampire who's like who just doesn't want to do what his traditional vampires do. And then my brain kind of connected that to like, what about like the old world and the new world, and like, someone coming to America at the turn of the century and like reinventing themselves, and it like went way into that direction. The strange thing, but it was still kind of the same idea about the vampire who didn't fit in. Yeah. But then it just like intersected with like early American immigrant history. So like that's like David had this very visual, like hilarious thing, and then I had this like weird, nerdy, cerebral thing, and together they kind of came up together as like a different thing entirely.
And that's
we have this. Yeah, now we have a vampire who like. Yeah, so that's the second story about the
it's called the vampire who bleeding heart vampire, where he still doesn't like to bite people, so he has to invent new creative ways to get blood out of people. And so he
works with Thomas Edison to create the refrigerator so they can keep blood from blood banks like overnight. He can take a little off the top, and so it's completely like twisted history. But
and we were still able to get pretty gory with it, kind of towards the end of the story, without still straddling
the line. You could do a fight with Bonnie and Clyde, get into a shootout with them and stuff like that. So.
Was there anything that didn't make the book? Was there anything that you were like, it might be too like silly?
I think that was the most extreme story that we were able to like. I can't even remember now, like what the other ideas were. Now we'll have to go through our archives and see what we can polish off for the inevitable sequel to Snot Goblins.
Whatever we can kind of like. Yeah, the second place, the leftovers.
Well, the book has been out. The book's been out. What? Just a few weeks now.
Just since like July.
Just almost a month. Yeah.
And how is it doing?
Mm-hmm.
Wait, what?
Information
you don't know with books. With books, they don't tell you until like 6 months out. They give you numbers and stuff like that. I mean,
what'd you just say? You said 6 months out?
That's the publishers give you like their numbers, like when they give you like the quarterly or like I think half monthly statements for your royalties. Yeah, it's pretty non-transparent. But I will say that when
I was going to ask, like, what about like downloads, or doesn't Amazon have like some kind of an ordering chart or something, like if people are buying this stuff off of Amazon?
The sales rank is kind of confusing because it's like that's just relative to everyone else. Like
it's pretty arbitrary. It seems like, so it's kind of our only metric that I'll look at on a daily basis. It's not like we were obsessed with looking at it or anything. So.
Yeah, no. I have mine open right now. I will say that when we go,
where are you at? Give us an update.
I'm not going to get the numbers here. It's sold a few hundred at least, and I know that when David and I go out in public, the events, like kids snap it up. Like I will say that response we can say is like very measurable. Like kids we don't know, like not our friends' kids, come up and like we hand it to them and they start like disappearing into it, and like it sells better at public events than I would ever have thought. Like my comic book shrinkage I sold before, like you get some kind of weirdos. My adult one, like some people would buy it, and David, I'm sure you've had different kinds of experiences, but this one, like kids buy it up in good amounts when you're at an event.
Do they want their parents to see them buy it? Is it almost like it's almost like a dare, right? Like, I'm going to find the grossest book on the shelf. Don't you think that there's a psychology to it? Like what y'all are doing that's actually pretty smart. Like that goes back to the Garbage Pails kids and that kind of stuff, where it's like, I'm going to ask for something gross, and I'm going to test the limits of what my parents will acceptably get me. And with something like a school book fair, where kids want to go and maybe they have like, a couple dollars, or they have their allowance and they're going to get the one thing that they can afford, right? Don't you think that's an opportunity for them to kind of test the limit there in front of their parents and see like what they can get away with? You guys are kind of like a gateway drug to that kind of behavior. Delinquency. I don't want to accuse you of doing it.
I certainly hope so. I think that is kind of like the little narrow window where which is, it's tricky because nowadays there's so many like gatekeepers, like parents and educators and stuff like that, who are like, well, I don't know if this is good for kids, but that's when if we hope we can get it out to kids so they can kind of grab on it themselves, and then like you said, like maybe it'll be like a kid who wasn't planning to get a book. They're like, oh, this looks like a cool, crazy, disgusting thing. So it's not like a nerdy book. It's like a it's a pictorial thing that will horrify my parents. So I think that is kind of like the goal of it. But a lot of parents are cool nowadays too. That's the problem, unfortunately.
That's the problem.
Right. I feel like you've been part of that. You've probably helped with that. You've probably made a lot of parents cooler with your podcast.
No, I think that it's a great idea, and I think there's a place for it. You know what I mean? Like, I think there's a place for a book like this, because I don't think we turned out so bad with the Boglins and the Madballs and stuff like that. Like,
true.
Remember like that Castle Grayskull when it would have like the goo that you could put out. So many like many toys back in the day had ooze as part of them. And like squirt guns and stuff like that are designed to kind of be offensive in a sense. And like,
I think David's frozen again. Are you frozen, David?
David might just be really, really bored with the conversation. No,
I think David's house
David
is full of carbonite.
David's in Texas. If I see David moving, I'll add him back to the show. But David has to prove to us he's alive first.
No, I think you're right. We grew up with that stuff, and honestly, like if you go on YouTube, like slime making is like a huge.
Yes. What is up with the kids and the slime?
You sound fairly disapproving, but.
No, but kids love that stuff, because my worry is that like it's just going to get like everywhere, but like kids love slime. It's become like a full thing. Like you said, like kids learn how to make that stuff online.
Not only that, but like, David and I have partnered up with here in Southern California, a company called Rockin' Slime, who's a slime party thing. And so we're joining forces to create like a snot slime party, birthday party experience that has like slime making and like stuff like games from the kids, and we're actually demoing this like next month at a party.
You come, okay, let's say I order that thing for my kid. Do I gotta put like plastic sheets on everything? Like, tell me how this works. Like, I order the slime party for my kid. What shows up at my door? Because it doesn't sound like a dude in a Darth Vader outfit to like sing songs. Like it's not like a princess that you get for your daughter.
They come to your, I think they do it, they do it in backyards, or if you're at a park, wherever it is, and they have a whole thing. They've been doing this for a while. Like I don't know if they do tarps or not, but like they all like, it's all like, it's not, it's all cleanable stuff. It's not staining stuff, but they come and they have a whole package where they bring their slimes. They show you how to make it. You can mix and match them. You put like, figurines in them and stuff like that. And it's a whole thing, and like they're booked every weekend because everybody wants a piece of that. So we thought, I reached out to them because I saw what they were doing. I was like, seems like we're simpatico here. So we're going to try it out and see like we can, create sort of kind of a theme party where you do that, and also we're playing games like we have a game called like sort of the floor is lava, but it's like the floor is disgusting. And it's like David makes pictures of like poop and vomit and all stuff like that. The kids are trying to avoid stepping on that. So all the things that we love in the book in his style combined with slime is, immersive disgustingness, I call it.
So it's almost like a Twister, but if you land on a different picture, and there you go.
And then I've developed over a couple of public events, I've created some recipes for I call disgusting delicacies. So one of them, this is like, homemade food, but it has like it pretends to be gross. So like one of them is like, I call it Flemon bars, like PHLEGM. They're like lemon bars with green food coloring. So they look yellow, green snot color. Or
I'm shaking my head, but people are going to want these.
Right. Exactly.
I'm shaking my head. Like there's no way that anything that's coming near my face, but absolutely.
But your kids will want to do it.
They're going to want to push the envelopes. Like kids are establishing who they are in this world, and they're going to want to push the envelopes with this stuff. Right. Rob, how much can you tell me about this Marvel project you've got? You've got Scott Lang. Is it a comic book? Is it a graphic novel? Like, what's this Scott Lang project?
Oh, the Scott Lang. So if your audience remembers, if they saw Ant-Man and the Wasp 3: Quantumania, the very beginning, so Scott Lang is retired after the Infinity Saga from superheroing, and now he's written his memoir, and he's like a celebrity book author, and he's like going around touring, and like that's actually kind of part of the friction at the beginning, where his daughter Cassie, aka Stinger, says, you've lost your hero touch, Dad. You don't care about helping people anymore, and that sort of becomes the plot of the movie. So Marvel decided to release that as an actual book written as Scott Lang, and so they hired me as the ghostwriter for it.
So it's a prose book.
It is a full of words prose book, as if it was the book he was reading, written by Scott Lang.
It's not a comic at all. It's
no.
I'm gonna have to work for the laughs on this one.
Yeah, you could say that.
That sounds great. Geekscape, as Christian Blatt brought this to my attention, he said, "Can you ask Rob about the Scott Lang book?" And I was like, absolutely. I just thought because it's Marvel and it's Scott Lang, Ant-Man, that it was going to be a comic. The fact that it's a prose book, and not just that, but the book from Quantumania, that's pretty funny.
It's pretty cool. Like, it was basically like the in-universe rationale for it is that the Avengers, so it's interesting. Like all of us on the screen saw what happened in like the Infinity Saga and stuff, but it's not clear that the general public, Earth 616 or whatever, like knew exactly what was happening. So, all these things and all the backstory to it, and like all the sort of ins and outs, like they just started to things blowing up. The sky is dark with clouds again.
Right.
So they wanted. So the idea is the Avengers wanted sort of their chronicle of what it all had happened, the whole story, and they sort of tapped Scott Lang to do it because he's kind of the everyman Avenger. He's kind of 1 foot in that world, 1 foot out of it, so he can kind of like communicate it to people. So it's a bit of that. It's him telling his perspective on those things, and also what he was told by everybody else. He's like the chronicler, and then also it's like him being like, a single dad, a divorcee, an ex-con, like what his life was like, and like there's some like life advice. There's some like very, very like inspiring, like self-help stuff about like my life, and then there's a lot of Scott Lang jokes, as well, like in the quips.
He missed most of the stuff because he was in the blip, wasn't he? Like he was in the quantum realm during the blip.
Yes, he missed. Yeah, so he missed that part. So he picks up the story from everybody else
from when the rat saved him.
Yeah, exactly. The whole book is thanks to the rat.
And you called Cassie Lang Stinger. It's not Stature.
I think it's Stature in the comics, and they're going with Stinger in the movies, but I might be wrong.
No, it's fine.
Don't call me on that one.
What'd you put in the book? I'm kidding.
No. So the thing with the book is that it takes place before Ant-Man 3 because he's reading it. Mm-hmm. So she doesn't really become she doesn't really level up, and I don't want to spoil anything, but
sure.
You knew that it was going that way.
Yeah.
So she doesn't really assume any kind of superhero persona until that movie.
That's cool, man. I didn't know it was a prose book. That sounds great. I know like a ton of people are going to actually think that's cool. Not just as like a story in a book, and your writing is really fun, and I'm sure it's a good book, but it's also a piece of merchandise. Like it's almost like a piece of merch
from the universe.
Movie. Yeah.
It's from the universe. And when I have one more cool detail that I can drop about that, and that's probably about all I'm allowed to say right now.
Before the Marvel lawyers swoop in.
Yeah, they've already swooped in.
Yeah.
They've come in with S.H.I.E.L.D. and so what I can say is that in the acknowledgement, so it puts Scott Lang's name on the cover, and then I'm sort of on the inside cover, the inside title page as the with Rob Kutner, as they do with Ghostwriters. And then in the acknowledgements, Scott Lang thanks me for being his writing coach, which means technically, Jonathan, I am in the MCU.
You're absolutely in the MCU. Right. You are absolutely in the MCU. You probably taught him how to punch Kang out. Like you did. You probably,
yes, I'm all about all the fisticuffs. That's kind of my thing.
This is the second book.
There's one thing you know about me.
Speaking of people you've knocked out multiple times, maybe David in this interview, you've knocked out of the interview several times in this conversation. I think David is back. The state of Texas isn't going to keep him from connecting to the internet.
Is he trying to get in?
To us? No. Here's the thing. I can see David when he's in the wings waiting to come back, and I just need him to move. Last time, David, we didn't know if you were frozen or just fucking bored. You were just bored out of your mind.
Yeah. I generally just sit here staring. I mean, even if I'm excited. So I apologize. I'll try to do better about acting like I'm an alive person.
If David dies in the course of this conversation, we won't know for another 20 minutes.
My family probably won't know either. They're just like, Like, oh, okay, whatever.
This is like the most boring
I
Final
would say
Destination.
until I start to smell bad, but that's par for the course also. So.
That's on brand for the.
You're right. Yeah, exactly. It's like this. The whole book was just inspired by my life.
Who are actually some of your inspirations, David? Like when you think about your art, when did you start drawing? And like we were talking earlier about kids and wanting to push the envelopes and gross out this and that. Was that part of your art style from the beginning? Was being kind of a bit of a mini provocateur right there with some gross out pictures and stuff?
Yeah, actually not really. I first started trying to imitate Jim Davis's style. I was a big Garfield fan as a kid, and when I started drawing comic strips, I wanted to draw like him. And then it was the combination of seeing Mad Magazine. I remember the first issue I saw, it was the summer of '89 when the Batman, Tim Burton's Batman came out. It was Alfred E. Newman as Batman on the cover of Mad, and that was just like blew my mind for some reason. It was just like, well, they're making fun of Batman. Oh my god, how could they do such a thing?
They must have some stones to be going.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Little do they know that they're both owned by the same company, and it's all synergistic. But it's a very famous cover. I remember absolutely picking that up, and you had to vote. Like, are you a cracked guy? Are you a mad kid? Are you a mad kid or a cracked kid? Like, did you ever do that where you're like, but Cracked did the horror stuff that I liked. The Cracked was like, we're doing the Freddy and Jason issues, and I was really into that.
I always gravitated towards Mad first because Cracked always in my mind they were both good. Looking at them now, but like at the time I was just like, Cracked is just the cheap imitation. But looking at it later, I was like, oh, Cracked has some really good stuff, and a lot of the same Mad artists work on both of them. So after I started drawing like Jim Davis, it was the combination of like I see Mad Magazine and like all the like Sergio and Al Jaffe and Tom Bunk, who did this famous comic strip called The Zit, where it's like this guy popping his pimple and it's like his entire innards are spewing out. That and then the Ren and Stimpy show that was it. I'm like, I'm gonna be gross and weird, and then I discovered Underground Comics, R-Chrome, all the Zap comics, and then that whole world. And I was like, I'm not going to draw cutesy Jim Davis until I get paid to do it later, which I actually worked on the Boom Studios Garfield comic a few years ago.
That's awesome. Does it make you feel good that I feel, this is what I've been witnessing, that like Gen Z is discovering Garfield and it's becoming like an icon for them? We're like, I don't give a fuck, I'm Garfield kind of thing. Like Garfield is almost like this alternative, like
it's a
symbol for them.
It's a weird like kind of thing because Garfield used to be kind of like the punchline for like, oh, how lame newspaper comics. It's he's just a fat cat that eats Mondays. That's hilarious. And then it became like kind of like to like it ironically. And now I think people genuinely like it. Now I'm not sure if it's around the corner to or not or what, but it does have an odd cult following with
I've just noticed it on social media that people that are 20 years younger than me are starting to post Garfield stuff. I can't imagine Garfield was that big of a deal in their childhoods because Adult Swim really was the end all of like,
right.
The influence in animation for those kids is the Adult Swim stuff, the Nickelodeon stuff. All that stuff is stuff that I'm a little too old for, but I liked Cat Dog. I thought Cat Dog was amazing. But the gross out stuff that Adult Swim was big on, and obviously like Ren and Stimpy being the beginning of that, it just felt like Garfield was never going to be able to top that stuff. And here we are with Garfield.
I don't know if we have matured. Well, I wouldn't dare say we've matured as a country to get past I hope to God we don't, because we have a book called Snot Goblins to sell. But I don't know, it's weird what catches on, with the internet. There may have been a Garfield, I think, is big with memes, and I think that could be a big part of why he's had a resurgence. Don't ask me.
I think Garfield has recaptured something that Gen X, which I think all of us already knew, the kind of whatever attitude. Like Gen Z had this moment of like, oh my gosh, everything's so important and everything's so dramatic and it's a crisis. And it's like, isn't it more relaxing to just not care?
Just like give a F. Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense.
I think that's why I gravitated towards Garfield, because it was
that's why it
absolutely the Gen X character.
But it took Gen Z some time to get to that. Like I think now
did they have to? They're exhausted. Almost a serious note. Is it like they got beat into submission by the realities of the world because they come out? I mean, Gen Z is a fairly idealistic generation where they're like, we're going to make sure that everything is PC. We're going to make sure that like everything is a cause. We're going to make sure that, and listen, I'm as into that stuff as anybody, but motherfuckers, pace yourselves, okay? Like, pace yourselves.
Yeah,
because y'all hit 22 and y'all were done. Like, I don't know anybody, but none of these Gen Zers, by the time they got to 27, 28, were still like as passionate about the cause. And they all started becoming Gen X pretty quickly.
Right. Yeah, I don't remember ever being that idealistic. I was like, I knew I wanted the world to be better, but like, I don't know what
the hell am I going to do?
Yeah, I'll just draw silly pictures and hope for the best.
I kind of love the idea when I opened this book that it was anthology, that there was a Tales from the Crypt guide, like a character, that there was somebody that gave it structure and presented the stories. Is that something that could lend itself to an animation, to maybe a cartoon series, maybe something that maybe could even be shorts, right? Like, I don't think there's cartoons that are over 12 minutes at this point.
Yeah, no, I think it totally could, Rob. I don't know. You write some and let me know. I'll draw.
I totally have an eye on that, because I think, like, I mean, first of all, the style of it is so unique that the visual style, to throw back to Dave, is, could easily lend itself to something that people would want to watch. But also, I think, the storytelling thing, and also, like, I don't know if you've noticed this, but the kids kind of all live in the same cinematic universe. Like, they all have elements of each other world. So it could be sort of like the way South Park is. It could be like a world where you could kind of just touch off on one of them. I think you could have like the Adventures of the Stepmommy Family or something every week, or the Snot Goblins kids are fighting with the Snot Goblins for supremacy of the world. Like, you could sort of extend one.
In the next book, I want a map. In the next book, I want to see. I want a map.
Tolkien style.
Like a Tolkien style map where we see where all these different characters live in the world.
I don't think I want to draw that, to be honest.
You stay out of this, David. You stay out of this. All right, we're setting your fate. Okay, you stay out of
the drawing part, David.
Your sails have been set. Okay,
all
you got to do. You're about the wind is coming, pal. Just make sure those sails are ready to go. So, like, remember when you were a kid and you would get a textbook, and you would get a cover for it, like a piece of paper cover, and you would, and it was like, it was like Kraft Bread or something, right? Like, it was a sponsored thing in Texas. Remember that, David? In Texas, it was always like that
Mrs. Baird's bread.
Mrs. Baird's bread, and they would come out with like a mini poster size book cover, and you would have to like take the top and bottom and fold them in, and then you'd get the sides, and those would fit into the sleeves of the of the book, and then you'd have your book cover. But if you were cool and you were like, F Mrs. Bear's bread, I don't want to do this shit, you'd turn it inside out so you could draw on it, right?
That's what I did. At first,
none of the cool kids had a fucking Mrs. Bear's bread logo on their books. They turned it inside out and drew like the little S thing on it and vandalized the thing. You know what I mean?
I was too dorky to even do that. That was like what the cool dorky kids were doing. I was dorky. I was just trying to draw Garfield. So
I definitely would put. I mean, I was a good student, so I'd put the subject of the book on it, but then I would just riff. You know what I mean? And I would draw all sorts of stuff on that book cover. Just an idea, guys. You do that with a map of the Snotiverse, and there you go.
Yeah. Well, that would be cool. I was thinking we could do Snot Goblins bookmarks, but my kid just started middle school, and they don't even give out textbooks anymore.
Hell no. It's all digital, man. It's all digital. You got to have a map.
It's also Texas, too.
Well,
it's
Texas. We don't even know what books are.
Snot Goblins is about to get banned.
Thank goodness the internet works great.
Let's do a map. Okay, this is what I'm now your manager for the project property. Let's do a map. All right, let's see where all these characters land, and maybe that's friendly to Hollywood. And then, can I be present for the animated recordings? I just want to hear the Snot.
Totally.
I mean, that will be the most disgusting cartoon recordings
the squelching folio.
Just some really serious Shakespearean actor who was like, he's
Idris Elba.
Idris Elba, and he's just sitting there making snot sounds in a recording booth. Can I be in on that? Can I be there for the gross out?
You got to check
recordings.
I'd pay money to see that.
You can have an exclusive.
All right, and here's the spinoff: Fart Goblins.
Fuck.
Oh.
Oh, come on. What do you take us for? Some
Yeah, that's so
immature
childish.
weirdos?
Come
Yeah.
All right. It can get worse from there, folks. It can get worse.
I'm
From
going to tell you.
Oh, yeah.
I'm going to tell you. I have a 10-year-old son, and he's like, "How about this? How about that?" And I'm like, I'm taking notes because it's like he's the
You-
demographic.
Oh, yeah.
You basically just landed on my maturity level here. It only took
Mine too.
your second visit, and welcome to Geekscape, Robert. You found the mentally. Yeah, your kid's probably.
I was already there.
Yeah.
There. We just met the meeting of the minds.
I love it, guys. Guys, I hope the book does amazingly well. I think it's fun. I think what we're gonna do as your manager, let's start the full court press going into Christmas. Let's start this up. Okay, let's start this up. LA Comic Con is the first weekend of December, but we can't wait until then. We got to start before that. All right.
What about Halloween?
Halloween would be huge. Are we going to maybe do a Party City party or like maybe a Snot Goblins themed Snot costume?
That's great. Dave, you can make costumes, right? How hard is that?
Yeah, I can.
I'm learning the relationship. I'm getting a pretty good beat on this relationship where you get an idea and just be like, David,
you're not just our manager, you're a therapist.
David, it's all you.
Therapist.
Oh, it has been since the book release. Like Rob has all these really good promotional ideas, but they require artwork, and so
he looks well rested, but David not so much.
Well, yeah, I've been struggling with the internet down here in Texas, and just it's been kind of a beating.
Well, Rob, go ahead. You feel what?
Obviously, I feel very lucky to have David because like I do have crazy ideas, and every time like I've never worked with an illustrator before. Like anytime I work with an illustrator, they're like, "Well, I'm busy for 6 months," or "Pay me $500 just for writing a panel or whatever." And David's like, "Sure, I want to sell this book. Let's do that."
Right,
you guys went in on the proposal together.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Right,
Yeah, we're the co-creators of it. So. But I'm saying like for promotions, like he's down to do anything. Like I say, usually the same day he'll send me something back that's like perfect, So I think we're a good team.
Don't push it,
Kutner. Perfectly gross. We'll
yeah. No, I like I have just as much stake in the book as you do, and like you come up with really good ideas, like the thing you took to Comic-Con with the big Snot Goblin, on a stick.
I didn't see no Snot Goblin on a stick.
Oh, do you have it with you
here?
Why didn't you interrupt my panel with the Snot Goblin on a stick?
This is the Snot selfie. So anybody wants takes a picture with this coming out of their nose, and so we get a lot of kids doing this.
Lines around the block to do that at Comic-Con. Right?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, this is where I think this is what I think. The book number 2, when it comes out next summer, you'll have it over at the Geekscape booth. I just gave you an impossible deadline, David. But guys, I think honestly, like let's get out there and let's hit let's hit the pavement with this thing. Are libraries maybe being open to you guys coming and doing readings, or is this just too much? You know what I mean? Like remember back in the day, like one of the big sales, and people always tell me that about like kids' books. Here's the thing: there's a Jonathan London in kids publishing, and I get an email about once every 2 weeks at this point, asking me to come read a Froggy book in a library. And I got one yesterday, and it's like I am not the author of the Froggy books, even though
you should show up and kind of reclaim it.
I'm just going to go to Sarasota, Florida, to read a library.
Yeah. Wait, I remember reading those. I remember reading those with my kids, and it was like, "Is that the same guy?" And I just
I'm illiterate. No, I don't have that level of literacy to write the Froggy books. That guy's a genius.
People have side hustles, I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, I wouldn't do Geekscape if that was my side hustle because those books were fairly successful, I believe. But I think that with this, let's get into those libraries and read to kids.
We're working on that. Like, first of all, I know it's in the LA Public Library system. Actually, if you look in the catalog, it's in there already. But I am actually trying to. I don't know if I told David this. I'm auditioning in about 3 weeks. They have an audition where to be a presenter in the libraries, and then if they accept you,
sweet.
They send you on the circuit. So what I'm doing is,
man,
I don't want to bum us out, bum the kids out after everything we said, but there's a couple of true things in there in the book. There's some true science. There's a little bit of history. The stuff is real. Anytime there's like a fact thing in there, it's usually kind of more or less based on something real. So I kind of pull those out, and so I come up with like a little sort of presentation where I'm going to talk about like, so like in one of the stories, the troll versus troll story. Remember the cave trolls? The cave has a pet bioluminescent fish, and he mentions like luciferin, like the chemical that makes bioluminescent fish. It's like in the context of a joke, but so I don't think I told you this, Dave. So I ordered from a science company crushed up fireflies contain that, and if you
Oh,
moisten
really?
them in the dark, they glow. So I'm going to do a science demo.
Oh, that's
part
freaking
of the
awesome. Oh man.
So
yeah.
I'm like going to try to
That's
do
very
that
cool.
as libraries and for schools. So that,
Oh,
like,
dude,
hey,
yeah.
it's educational.
Yeah. Wait, yeah. Like,
Did you keep a lot of secrets in the making of this book, Rob?
So much is coming out from this podcast. This is like a real breakthrough.
Say, hang on, Rob, you wrote the book?
Yeah. Also, Dave, I've been banging your wife.
Oh, Jesus.
I waited
knew
until he went for the water for that, but he didn't spit it out.
He didn't spit anything out. All right, guys. The book can be picked up at snotgoblinsbook.com. Geekscape, that'll lead you right to where you can purchase it. If you are thinking about that teenager in your life, they're like, hey, they're probably going to want this. This seems like a pretty good idea. The Ant-Man book, the Scott Lang book, will be out when it comes out. We'll post it
September 5th. Like I think
September 5th. That's like in 2-3 weeks. It's perfect.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
And then
That's
David,
awesome.
what's next for you after the Snot Fest? Which is what we're calling this era.
Snot Fest, yeah.
Snot Fest.
Well, like I say, I have a new book in the works. I can briefly touch on it.
Sure.
It's the first project I've done in a long time. Doesn't have anything gross to do with anything gross. It's about a little.
This conversation's over.
Yeah.
That was David and Rob. Everybody, no, go ahead. You talked about bioluminescent fish. Like we're not that geeky. No, I'm kidding. We're actually very geeky.
This book, it's a kid's book. It's meant for younger kids. It was brought about like the emotions I saw that people were dealing with during COVID, where it was like people tried to tackle a lot of things and like just feeling like just beat down in them. And I drew this image with this little happy little forest critter and with the words "I am not okay" surrounding him, and it just like was just inspired by like during everything that just has gone on since the past 4 or 5 years, and an editor I worked with for a long time saw it, was like, why don't we try to turn this into a book project? So I came up with a story where there's this little fluffy happy critter that like he sings songs for everybody to make them happy, and then through the course of a day everybody keeps coming to him with different problems and he has to keep singing this happy song, and he ends up just having a nervous meltdown. And it's trying to teach kids to learn to deal with your problems on your own, and also it's also relatable for parents to not try to that you don't have to take care of everything. Let your kid kind of be self-sufficient. And there's a lot of these kind of like sort of ideas. I'm kind of trying to compress this little idea. I have an 11-year-old and a 6-year-old.
So, but I mean, you obviously were thinking of them, and
Oh yeah, I can't not. Anything I make now, I have to kind of put through them as a filter, to see if would they like it, would they think it's funny, was it something that them or their kids would.
It's a different
tell me
emotional.
Yeah, like the emotions I see, like as not only as parents, but you see the stuff that your kids go through. So I try to write stuff that's kids can relate to. Because I remember when I was reading books as a kid, if I could relate to it emotionally, I remember that would really resonate with me and it'd be memorable. So with
what's it called? I mean, are we far away from this one, or is this something that you've already started to put it together?
I'm still workshopping.
Okay.
His lawyer just cut him off.
Yeah, his lawyer just said that's enough of that. David, you could actually hear when Ultron pulled the plug on him. Like you could literally
that's his lawyer.
Hear it. Okay, he's back. All right, David, you got snagged hard by the legal department. They're like, no.
Yeah, there, man.
Next thing you know, this moron's gonna want a map and. So he's like, no, do not tell Jonathan any more ideas. He will make them stupid and uncommercial immediately.
I'm doing a good enough job of that on my own. So no,
don't be like that. All right. Geekscape, clearly these two need emotional support, and you can only provide it with your wallet. I'm kidding. You're gonna go to snotgoblinsbook.com. And again, like if you're thinking of somebody who's like, oh, I was thinking about getting them into like, again, Madballs, Garbage Pail Kids, trauma movies, all the stuff teenagers are into. Even now, like we said, like the stuff that we were into in the 80s and 90s, that stuff all seems to be coming back.
There's a new Toxic Avenger coming out
right now. Absolutely. Yeah. And so Geekscape is snotgoblinsbook.com. And of course, like we always love having Rob on the program, and David now too. Once David gets
once I can plug into the 21st century, whatever.
Could you imagine if you use that iPad?
Mm-hmm. I probably would have a single problem. I asked you said to use a laptop. So.
Yeah, please use a laptop. And then I think if you would have used an iPad, you would have frozen, and then when you came back on, you would have been on fire. So I think there's like shards of glass in your face. Everything just exploded.
I'm 4 seconds away from setting myself on fire all the time.
Yeah.
Anyway, so.
Thanks, Greg Abbott. Just one more thing we can say
I know.
fuck you about. You asshole.
Sucks.
I'm sorry. My parents live there. I have friends who live back in Texas.
Okay, yeah.
And,
well, we find our own groups of sane people and try to, keep each other alive.
Yeah. Yeah. My dad was telling me today, he's like, this is a second straight month of like 100-degree weather. There's like some crazy streak of 100-degree days.
Yeah, it was like 106 today, I think.
Really. My birthplace has just become hell, is what it sounds like. Both politically and physically. Pretty much. All right, guys. Congrats on the book. I'm excited to read it some more. Thanks for sending me that copy, but I want to hold it in my hands. What about Scratch and Sniff Snot Goblins?
Ooh.
I'm throwing all of it at you.
Next level. I love it.
Yeah. I'm throwing it all at you. Guys, the book's called Snot Goblins. You can pick it up anywhere you can get books. Order online, snotgoblinsbook.com. If you want to follow Rob online, the best place to do it is
robkutner.com.
And if you want to follow David online, the best place to do that is
DeGrandland.com.
Okay, DeGrand.
DeGrandland. Right, yeah. DeGrandland.
All right, awesome.
Yeah.
Geekscape, so you know where to find us. Geekscape, just search your Geekscape, you'll find the podcast. Leave a review. That helps us out a lot when people are like, oh, some other guy liked this podcast. Maybe I'll listen to that. And it kind of like floats the algorithm on Spotify and Apple Podcasts and all that stuff. So it really helps us out. I appreciate y'all doing that. I'll get all the Comic-Con shirts up on the store online. I promise. I will. We're already almost sold out of a bunch of stuff. So I think I have to reorder some stuff. And the best way to reorder it is to sell the rest of it to you guys. So I have money to reorder stuff. So Geekscape is like, we're working. And we'll see you guys next week for a brand new Geekscape. And I think we have a Blue Beetle episode coming up too. So hit the subscribe button, share with your friends, and you'll find out a little bit more as we explore this Geekscape together. Thanks, guys, for coming on the show.
Thank you so much, man. Appreciate it.
Of course.
Yeah, thanks. This is awesome.